Hi guys, just recently moved to UBC, so for this video my audio quality might be a little bit lower than usual. But once I have my setup completely good again, it'll be ready to have that same audio quality as before. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Hello and welcome to today's video 206 reverse linked list. Given the head of a singly linked list, we want to reverse the list and then return it. So we're given this example here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then as a result, we want 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And same thing with the second example over here, we have 1 and 2, and we want to return 2 and 1. So just to define what a list node is, basically what it is it's an object over here where you have the value and a pointer to the next list node over here. So all of these circles represents its own basically list node object, which has a pointer to the next recurring one. What we want to do is we want to switch it around so it's pointing to the previous instead of the current. So one way we could do this is by utilizing a temporary variable. And with that temporary variable, basically what we can do is, okay, we can set the temporary to equal to the current's next one. We can set the current's next one to equal the previous. We want it to switch and become the one. For example, for 2, it's pointing to 3. We want it to be set to 1 again. We want to set the previous to equal the current, right? And we want the current to equal the we want the current to equal the temporary value, which is the current dot next. And the thing is, because we already modified curr dot next, we actually have to refer to the temporary value instead in order for that to work. So just to walk through this again, basically for every single node, let's say we have the list node 2 over here, what we're doing is we're setting temp, like this temporary placeholder, to equal the current's next, which is 3, pointer to 3. We set the next value to equal the previous. So 2's next one is actually pointing to 1 instead, right? Because that's the previous over here. Next thing we do is we set the previous to equal the current. So so with this one, previous to equal the current, we'll actually be iterating through every single value, having like keeping state of what the previous, the current and the previous is. So what we could do is set current to equal head, and then we can have the previous equal nothing so far, because when we start off at the 1 value over here, there's going to be nothing. And while the current exists, what we're going to want to do is basically run through this for every single iteration, setting the previous to equal to the current and the current to equal to temporary. And at the very end, what we're going to want to do is return curr, because that's going to be the head of the list. So we can go ahead and run this through for, let's say, like the 1, 2, 3 example over here, just to solidify things. We have 1, 2, 3 over here, right? So what we're doing is we're setting, like while the current exists, it's equal to the head, we set that to 1 at first. We set a temporary value, so we'll have like a t to equal the current dot next, which is 2. Then we set the current next value to equal the previous. So in this case, for 1, none is the previous, so it just set to none, right? So now we have 1 is equal to none, right? And then from there, you check to see what the previous is, and you set that to the current. So then the current becomes the like the head, right? Well, the previous becomes 1, right? So p, let's say like pre becomes head, and then from there you set the current onto the to the temporary value. And since the temporary value is 2, the temporary value becomes 2. So we effectively move forward in the linked list and we repeat the same thing again. And this time, because we have, we know that the previous for this one is 1 because we set it to that, and we set the current to equal the temporary value, which is 2. Well, we're effectively traversing through the linked list, just reversing it in that way and keeping track of what the next one is, regardless of what we do to modify it, because we have that temporary value over there. So if you go ahead and run this now, okay, I see. Oh, actually, uh, instead of returning the current elements, what we actually have to do is, if I'm not mistaken, we have to return the previous elements, because at the very ending iteration, the current is going to equal the temporary, and because the temporary is going to equal that of current.next, and there's no current.next, it'll return nothing. So yeah, we actually have to return the previous value as the very ends. Go ahead and run this, and it's accepted. All right. So one other thing about this problem, it does take a lot of effort, well, a little bit of effort in order to kind of imagine the whole scenario in your head. So a useful thing that I find in order to help remember this is by remembering the abbreviation TNPC. I think of it as like, okay, T is equal to temp, uh, N is equal to next, P is equal to prev, and C is equal to curr. So instead of having to think of basically what we have to do, we have to iterate through the array. What do we need? We need a temporary value, and then we need to have that set to the current next one, so on and so forth. You can think of TNPC and then remember that abbreviation to kind of get an idea of the order in which this has to be done. And yeah, I just find it'll be helpful for if you're solving larger problems which require you to reverse the linked list, you can quickly write it up. But yeah.